I think if you, by society standards, don't have a beautiful look, then the the immediate response, if it were me, would be like, okay, then I'm going to be smarter and more successful than every motherfucker in the room. What's up, y'all? Derek Peterson here. Welcome back to the Unweighted Podcast. I am your host, thrice married, twice divorced, with 4 kids and 2 dogs. It's a party over here, and this is my co-host, Hannah Stevens.
That would be me. Twice married, once divorced, 1 child, 2 dogs. Also a party over here.
That's how it works. Yeah, and it's a continued party this week because the temperatures dropped drastically, which means everybody has
A little frisky.
Everybody has head congestion every time.
Oh.
It's never fails. As soon as the first cold front comes in for me, I think it's the cedar pollen start to release as soon as that first cold front hits, because every year it hits me so I feel like I'm talking from behind my nose right now.
Yeah,
So.
Shane's the same way. He was feeling badly this morning, which basically means he's dying, so.
That's how it works. We're big babies.
You men.
Need somebody to take care of us.
Help me, I'm dying.
You know what? Ironically, I grew up in a house that wasn't the case. My mom was never sick and did not give a crap if we were sick. So I actually I'm probably on the opposite end of the spectrum of that, where I probably have a little, I don't have enough empathy for when people get sick. But I was also married to somebody that was sick all the time and wanted to be served hand and foot when she was. And that I couldn't do either. So.
That's exhausting.
But how was the week?
It was good. It's holiday week, Thanksgiving. So that was nice to have a little bit of time off from work and get to enjoy some family. So it was good. How was y'all's Thanksgiving?
Fantastic as always. Turkey trot, bunch of eating.
Oh, that's right. Y'all do that every year.
Yeah, bunch of eating, bunch of drinking. I fell asleep on the couch. It's perfect.
That's a good day.
Exactly what we needed. So
good for y'all.
All right, well, let's jump into our regularly scheduled programming. What was the worst thing that happened this week?
So, worst thing that happened this week for me, we had to transport our RV from where it was to a storage facility. We don't have a big truck, a large enough truck to pull this thing. It's humongous, so I have to hire somebody to do it. And the guy that I always hire, love him to death, super nice guy, hit a tree.
Oh, wait, with the RV or with his truck?
With my RV.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, luckily it's purely cosmetic. It's just some scratches on the top corner where he nicked the tree on his way out. So in the grand scheme of things, it could have been way worse. But for somebody like me who's so OCD and also convinced that the world is falling anytime something significantly risky has to be done, for this to happen, as soon as I heard it, Shane was standing across me. I was like, I fucking told you. This shit's going to go wrong. Everything's going to be terrible. It was not great. So that was certainly the worst thing that happened to me this week.
That's how it goes. Yeah, mine's a little bit small, but we had some people buy the house behind us, and they've been renovating, so they've been using
constant construction noise.
Yeah, not noise. They've been using their backyard, which our upper deck can see into their yard. So they've been using their backyard forever as basically a giant trash can. So
That's nice to look at.
The entire inside of their house was eventually thrown into the backyard, which was then eventually transported to dumpsters. But it was like that for a couple months. But then we noticed a couple days ago that some bright lights at night were just flashing directly into our bedroom. And I'm like, what's going on? So we went and looked, and the entire family was out there for the last 2 days trying to build a shed, and they only do it at dark at night. So they're only out there after.
What the hell?
They have these giant floodlights that they've had on until 11 p.m.
Oh my God.
So we've been, I didn't say anything. I was like, we can do it. They turn them off before it's too late. So I'm like, whatever, we'll close the curtains and deal
So
with it. But
inconsiderate. People are so inconsiderate.
that's how it goes. But
Yeah.
well, let's jump into. I was actually pretty excited for this week's conversation. I'm excited to hear your take on some of this. So
Yeah.
today we're going to talk about, do men get their value from money and do women get their value from beauty, and how those things kind of intersect and overlap. Uh, this conversation came up because I've been listening to a lot and reading a lot about masculinity, and there seems to be this kind of divide at the moment about what masculinity actually is. You have a lot of bros out there talking on podcasts and talking about how, you know, m- women need to get back in the kitchen and men need to show up and be strong and, dominate alpha, kind of that world where I'm
Yeah.
like, uh, um, and then the response to that has been also not genuine. Like there is like a lot of the responses that I hear to, like, the negative responses to, oh, alpha push, gender role type situations,
Sure.
is that the response to that is like, people need to just, like, young men need to be given more time and grace and coddled. And there's some truth to both, right? There's some truth, but I think the genuine truth lies in the middle. And
Yeah.
so I want to talk about this because money is a direct impactor of how men oftentimes view themselves. And I
Sure.
don't think this is all men. I think it's a societal thing at times, but it's also something that impacts you, especially if you grew up uh, working class or poor.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
because if you grew up working class or poor and you were around people that weren't at all,
Right.
then you understand the very real dichotomy of, having nice stuff and not having nice stuff,
Yeah.
and the attention boys get when they have nice stuff and the attention that they don't. So for me, I kind of want to jump into that aspect of it, but let's start with kind of where I want to start with you, how you feel like women and getting their value from beauty, where you sit on that.
Yeah.
Because I know your story behind that is also one of going from not necessarily viewing yourself as beautiful to then being beautiful and
Sure.
probably getting some of that attention.
Yeah.
So I think you have a unique perspective here.
Sure. This is a very meaty conversation, and there's so many good topics in this. I think I'll give a little bit of my kind of general framework for this first. So, and some of this is going to be super controversial, and I think that that's what makes this entertaining, but also keeps this conversation really authentic and genuine.
Yeah.
So, I would say I felt one way prior to having children about gender roles and um sense of value based off of what you bring to the relationship and how you contribute. And I have a not an entirely different, but a certainly evolved view on how I feel about that after having a child, which is really fascinating to me because I felt pretty grounded and set in how I felt about things with regard to that prior to having a child. And I didn't anticipate it to change, and it did. Um, Prior to having a child, I thought, if I have a child or when I have a child, I felt really strongly that I would always want to work because my career and my identity was largely built in my sense of professionalism and, contributing financially to my household. And so I didn't see myself being willing to let that go. Um, and now, after having a child and spending time with her and not spending time with her when I couldn't, if I could not work, I would choose to not work. And I would be perfectly fine with it. And it would not be a threat to my self-esteem to not contribute financially to my family. Unfortunately, my situation doesn't allow for that. We need to be a dual income household to survive, probably like the most average American families need dual income. So it's not really something I can consider at this point, but if I could, I would. So that was really interesting for me that that shifted so drastically. And I think, that's just because I have taken on a new sense of identity and I get a lot of my feelings of self worth from being a mother now. And I would love to lean into that more if I could. So, also, I think I have kind of an interesting perspective because I tend to be a more masculine woman. I'm still very feminine, especially in appearance, but I tend to be more of an alpha type female. So I relate to the feelings of getting feelings of self-worth from money and what I bring to my family financially. So I kind of have a unique perspective on that too, I would say. So,
Yeah, and just so people know, you were also the breadwinner in your marriage for a long time, even and prior to having kids. So
yes, yes.
it's also kind of a necessity. It's been a necessity for you, I think, in both your relationships, right?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the interesting thing about being a female, a successful female is, and it feels weird to say that because it just seems kind of yucky, which is stupid. It shouldn't feel yucky to say that. But when you are a woman that makes a certain income level or above, the likelihood that your husband will ever out earn you becomes less likely. And so this dynamic will kind of always exist no matter how much money your husband makes to an extent, that you'll be the primary breadwinner. And so you have to find yourself in either one of two things, either in a relationship where your husband is totally okay with that and it's not a threat to the relationship, or it is a threat to the relationship and you make peace with it. So it's kind of it's an interesting place to be. And it's my husband also chose to be a stay-at-home dad because we could have financially afford for him to stay home and me to work for the first year of my daughter's life. And that was such a blessing and I wouldn't change it for the world and I know my husband wouldn't either, but it also was a really weird unpredictable dynamic for us where we thought we would feel one way about it and we felt another way about it and it was really interesting.
Yeah, how do you think Shane felt? Like, did Shane have any reserves about not being like the financial breadwinner for your family? Was that a struggle for him?
It's an interesting answer to that question. So again, I think when you're married to someone who has the earning potential that they do, you just make peace with it or you don't. And that's going to just determine how things go. Shane made peace with me being the one who was always going to make more money. So that never bothered him. What bothered him was not contributing at all financially. And
Yeah.
I was very vocal with him. I said, listen, I get it. I understand where you're coming from, but taking care of our child and being the primary person at home to take the weight of that on has so much value that I don't see it as you not contributing. I see it as you contributing maybe even more than you ever have. And it was very difficult for him to digest that because he just has this very old school framework for what a man's contribution could look like, should look like. And I think that has evolved for him. But certainly it was a very difficult thing to really wrap his head around and started to become more difficult the longer he did it. In the beginning, he made peace with it more. And as she was turning a year old, he was like, I have to get back into the workforce. Like, I'm really struggling to not contribute financially. And it was also becoming more difficult because babies get more expensive as they get older, right? So you have more needs, and so still not contributing as the needs are growing becomes even harder.
Yeah, and I don't think people fully understand like, even if you work in childcare, I think if you work in childcare, you're a teacher, you probably have a
Yeah,
better understanding than of this, but if you're not a parent, you don't understand the amount of work it takes to be a parent, and
totally.
it's not just the physical changes to your lifestyle, it's what you think about, because,
Yeah,
prior to being a parent, you might, you're you think about your partner, but they're mostly self-sufficient, like, you have other things, but when you have a kid, like, your entire world starts to revolve around that, and
completely.
it has to, right? It has to be the
Yes,
thing that's the most important thing in your life, and so it really changes every dynamic in the household, and I think until you have kids, you don't actually understand that,
sure.
but what I did know is that I wanted to I wanted to there was this deep drive and desire to be able to financially provide, and not just financially provide, but to create, like I wanted my kids to grow up in the rich kid lifestyle because I was always on the outside looking in. And so there then became this drive. Well, if I don't get that, I want that for my family.
Mm,
So uh to the point where, like, I was so motivated when I was young to get myself to a position. I didn't understand enough about finances, and I also think that the being famous part when I was younger may have driven me more than the money. I realize as I get older, I'm not actually that driven by money. I'm driven by people,
mm,
because I care about people. But when I was younger, that was confused with I was driven by wanting to be famous.
yeah,
I wanted people to know who I was. And I wanted to feel like I was contributing to the world in a positive way, I think in general. And when you're a kid and you're young, that comes out in a bunch of immature ways.
sure.
But this drive for financial stability has been ingrained in me since I was a child, and money is flaunted in our faces from the time as soon as we're aware of it, right? Like, we see kids at school that have nicer clothes than us, that have the things that we don't have, nicer bikes, nicer toys, all of these things, and the desire to get and obtain money uh, comes in at a very early age.
Yeah,
And the shame that comes with not being able to obtain that is hefty. And the byproduct of that is it can leave people in a place, and I'm talking about this from a male perspective because
sure.
my wife and I had this conversation yesterday morning as we were walking, and I was thinking about this, because I asked her directly. I was like, if you had the choice to be rich and fat or skinny and poor, which would you choose?
Yeah.
And her answer immediately was skinny and poor. Like,
Really?
yeah, she was like, "I'll take if obviously you can't use your wealth to change your appearance in this scenario." So, like, in a perfect world, she'd be like, "Yeah, I'll take the money and then just get skinny." But,
Yeah.
like, this isn't an option here. I'm saying
Yeah.
you have
Finite parameters for this
to
situation.
you have to live out your life,
So
fat
either way,
fat and wealthy, or skinny
skinny
and
and
poor.
poor.
And my it was no question for me, fat and wealthy, and hers was immediate, almost skinny and poor. So, like, there is so I guess my question is, like, I've struggled with this for the majority of my life,
Mhm.
this idea of being able to provide and be be something financially for my family that my parents weren't for me.
Sure.
So, on the beauty scale for women, does this apply, on your from especially from your perspective? Like, how much weight are is there for women based on their looks, and how much does that drive you on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Um, Unfortunately, the answer is it's heavily weighted, not only in our society, but in my personal life. It's something that my mom also has a very unhealthy relationship with value being placed on aesthetics. Um, and I absorbed a lot of that. I have also worked hard enough to try to reject some of that. But there's still a lot of that within me. And I know it's hard because I think it gets a little bit convoluted too, because I go, well, I'm happier skinny. I'm happier skinny. And it's like, yes, you're happier skinny, but are you happier because life is easier, not because you're skinny, right? Yes, life is easier because you're skinny, but as an example, like, I'm happier because I can sit on this couch with my legs crossed and feel comfortable and not insecure about being on camera. Is it because I'm skinny? Yes, but it's just because I'm comfortable, right? So they get kind of convoluted in that you look a certain way and therefore life is easier, and you look a certain way and so things become more attainable. So I know I definitely can feel a direct correlation to my sense of joy and self-worth based off of how I look. And the days where I feel a little bit heavier or if I've put a pound or two on, I can feel it in my sense of self-esteem for sure. And I th I know beyond a shadow of a doubt it's very important for me to continue healing that because having my sense of self-worth be so contingent on that is in of itself a bit of a mental illness, right? And it's not I'm not getting my joy where it should come from. My joy should come from something more stable, something less shakeable. Um, and I don't know, it's hard to let go of that. It's hard to let go of that.
Yeah, there in general, I think that the connection between men and money is very similar in that it's easy to sit when you're in a place of even just regular, like we're okay, we're not overly stressed financially,
Right.
and be like, you know, finances aren't necessarily like a problem or a driver. It's a much different situation. And this is a unique thing for me because, I run my own business and my business is down, you know, to 30% from where it was, or it's down to a third of what it was. So actually down, almost 70% from where I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
2 years ago. So, with that being the case, our lifestyle has had to drastically change. And my wife works, and this might actually be the first year that she ends up making more money than me since we've been together,
Yeah.
which makes me feel like, and full disclosure, it makes me feel like shit
Yeah.
because one of the
But
things that
but
I
but do
took.
you feel like shit because you made less money, or do you feel like shit because she made more money than you? Because those are 2 different things.
It's more a me thing than a her thing.
Okay.
I applaud her, and actually, I advocate. I'm her biggest advocate when it
Sure.
comes for her making more money. I'm not threatened by her making more money at all. It's more that I took my own personal value in making double to triple what she's made over
Sure.
the last few years, and it makes me feel like my contribution to the household is significant because
Yeah.
me being able to pay for things, me being able to do the things that we've been able to do and have nicer vacations, all of that, there's a sense of pride that comes with that. And it's actually satisfying and validating those stories from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of doing it. So these moments where we have to scale back, there's this insane amount of fear that comes with these situations where I'm at right now, where these economic downturns, where it's really small businesses struggle because this throws me back into that scarcity loop from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like my kids, I've been able to do things with my kids that my parents were never able to do, but this year was the first year we had to kind of stop doing those things.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have our big beach vacation, summer vacation this year,
Right.
and we had to cancel it because that's an expensive trip. It usually
Yeah.
costs us about 8 grand.
Yeah.
So, and in a normal year, that's not that big of a deal. We save
Sure.
for it and it's fine. Even little things like we had to sell off some of our season football tickets to help pay for next year's, just in case next year's is bad.
Yeah.
Like games that we would have wanted to go to, but we knew we're going to sell for a good amount. So it was just a smarter decision. Things like that start to rock the foundation of this life that I built that was different than the life that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And the fear of going back to where we were at before with my kids and like it triggers things from my childhood
Sure.
that I think are not super healthy. But
Yeah.
so for your well, go
I
ahead.
have a thought. This dawned on me, and I don't think this is pertinent to you because I think you're a little bit of a unique person when it comes to your level of enjoyment and motivation for being emotionally available and mature in your family and your relationship. But men in general, I think, often do not enjoy being emotionally vulnerable. We'll start there, but also having to put in work to emotionally evolve. Men would prefer to not have to do that because it is a lot of work. So I think that there's kind of a dynamic that can exist where men put a lot of value on bringing money to their household because it allows them a removal of pressure to have to be emotionally available and emotionally diligent. It's like, well, I bring the money, so I don't need to go out of my way to emotionally contribute to my family. This is a pass for me. I work really hard, so I don't have to do all of that. And that is so damaging and so dangerous for a family, for a relationship, for parenting, all of the things. And I think that happens more often than it doesn't.
Well, yeah, and that speaks to the gender roles. Like, if you go back to gender roles, like, so if men are conditioned that their gender role is just provider, right?
Hmm.
Then being that feel makes you feel like you've satisfied the conditions of a relationship.
Right.
That just bringing in the money is all that
Is
was
enough.
required is was enough, right? Where those roles from the women's side, right? And I think that this is we see this in dating apps. There's a thing going around right now that's 6 foot and six figures for when it comes to men. So like if you're not in that realm, then your stock as a man goes significantly down, and
Sure.
the desirability for women goes way down.
Right.
Now, the flip side of that is that beautiful women have historically been able to use that attention, and their beauty to leverage what they want. And I don't blame them, because it's desirable for men to do that. So
Sure.
the the result of that, though, is that I feel like women that might not be as physically attractive as other women have then decided that, like, okay, if my beauty and my physical appearance, which I didn't get to choose, right? Like,
Sure.
we're born in these bodies. If you have a beautiful face, you have a beautiful face. If you
Yeah.
don't, by the world's standards, which I think everybody is beautiful to somebody, but I think if you, by society standards, don't have a beautiful look, then the the immediate response, if it were me, would be like, okay, then I'm going to be smarter and more successful than every motherfucker in the room.
That's
Like,
who I was. When I
yeah,
was heavy, I was and I was also trying to counteract the stereotypes that come along with being overweight. People who are overweight are assumed to be sloppy, messy, dirty, all of these things, undisciplined. So I took that part of my identity and went in the exact opposite direction. That pendulum swung so far the other way. I was the most organized, I was the most tidy, I was the most professional, I was always on time. All of those things were really, really emphasized in my life because I didn't have the benefits of being able to leverage my looks to get what I wanted or be seen as a certain way or a certain type of person.
yeah, and that's so like so. But then, so what's happened is, and this is kind of my overall view on this, is we've seen women that don't want to be defined by their looks
Mhm.
take off in education and the workplace.
Sure.
They're smart. Women can multitask incredibly well, and they've really pursued this career life to
Mhm.
as I think as a byproduct of social pressures to that like if you are by society standard an ugly woman, and you're not going to be able to find a partner that you genuinely think is going to care for you and provide for you, then
Sure.
yeah, you're going to react by, then I'm going to do all this myself.
Yeah.
Now, women have been doing that, which I think is amazing. And I don't think it's just unattractive women. I think women in general are,
I was gonna say, we're gonna get reamed for this fucking podcast.
I don't think it's
Ugly women have to work so much harder. Wh
I'm not saying ugly women have to work so much harder. I'm saying that and I can understand this because I was an overweight fat kid that
Yeah.
was completely unattractive too. Like, like my default response was, if I'm not going to get the attention that I want, then I'm going to be the hardest worker in the room.
Sure.
Um, Now, the byproduct to the success of all women kind of being pushing into the workforce, advocating for themselves, getting better jobs, uh, which I think is amazing, is that men who historically have been conditioned to, you are the provider, and that societal norm hasn't just left us, right? There's
Yeah.
still it's
Stick
still
around.
it still lingers,
Yeah.
and the pressure to be that is still there. The problem is that for men, when you feel like you're unsatisfactory for your life's purpose, that you're maybe not equipped to do the thing that everybody is telling you you should be doing. You don't feel equipped to be the provider or the protector or the man of your house. What if your genuine feeling is that, right? Like, say you grew up in a house with a helicopter parent that did everything for you, and your self-esteem is just annihilated by
Yeah.
the time you get to high school and college because you've had people doing shit for you your whole life.
Yeah, you're incapable.
You feel incapable of that, right? Because somebody else is taking that mantle from you your entire life. Furthermore, if that was your mother, that becomes an even bigger problem. And the leaning for this is coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
And the problem with men is once they start down the path of coping mechanisms, if you start down this path and you don't have the emotional resilience and the mental resilience to fight against what you feel like is the pressure being put on you by the world,
Yeah.
then you feed into these coping mechanisms like video games, which is almost every kid at the moment,
Yeah.
social media, almost every kid at the moment, pornography, gambling, drugs, alcohol. And the thing that sucks about this is that coping mechanisms are the barrier to entry, and the cost of them is virtually nil.
Right.
So you and if you are singularly focused, which men tend to stereotype, yes, but men tend to be very good at doing one thing at a time.
Yes.
So which is but historically for me, the thing that I'm focused on, I do very well.
Yeah.
But if the thing I'm focused on is video games, then and everything that's all I'm thinking about and what I'm focused on, then I'm going to be really good at video games. I'm going to be really shitty at everything else.
Yeah.
And this is where I think the crux of it for men is right now is that the the barrier to entry with coping mechanisms, because society like I mean, all these companies and everybody profits off of that, right?
Yeah.
But the barrier to entry on all of these things is so low now, and men are starting so early because of the weight of society and the pressures that they buy into it. And the byproduct is that this gap is getting wider and wider. We're finding, men are struggling more and more, and women are taking off more and more. Um, and I don't think that it's a bad conversation to have, to be talking about, like celebrating the fact that we've changed historically what's been happening for women, and we're in the process of hopefully destroying what we call gender roles, because I don't buy into gender roles in general. Like, I think it's different for every house. Like, I hear your story, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Like, everybody has a different purpose. I have other friends, one of my best friends, she's a mom and has 3 kids, and she didn't want kids before she got married, and after she
Mhm.
had kids, she couldn't get back to work fast enough.
Yeah.
Like, she was like, "I am not meant to be a mom. I am
Yeah.
meant to be out working, doing everything." So, this is an individual thing, not a
Sure.
collective thing, and I think it needs to
Sure.
be celebrated, while at the same time, I think that we do need to give attention to the fact that, man, like, young men need help. They need clarity. And when I say help, I don't mean we need to be holding their hand through all of this. I mean, young men, this isn't a conversation that needs to be brought to their attention,
Yeah.
and they need to be given the options and know how to work through this
The
stuff.
tools. Yeah, they need to be
Yep.
given the tools to figure out how to do this. And
Yeah.
it's such a taboo conversation, and it can be a very scary topic to broach because you don't want to piss people off, you don't want to be canceled, all of the things. But I am a firm believer men and women are not equal. We are different, and we're supposed to be different from each other. Not in the sense that women should be in the home and men should be in the workforce, but naturally women tend to be a certain way. Naturally, men tend to be a certain way. And then there's caveats within all of that. And the caveats and the trick to working through those caveats is finding you a person who fits to your caveats. This is a little bit different about me from what's maybe typical or standard. This is a little bit different about me from what is typical or standard. But I don't ascribe to the idea that women can do everything that men can do. Men can do anything women can do. I don't ascribe to that, and I don't
Yeah.
think I ever will. Um, and that's purely based off of my own personal experience, right? And so
Mhm.
my frame, my worldview on that is going to be narrower than a worldview because I even if I took my own experience out of it and only observed what I saw in the world, I'm still in America. I'm still a woman. I'm still a white woman. I'm still a white woman who's in her 30s. And so my view is only ever going to be limited. So I can't really take the world into consideration. And I think people who try to are naive. You have to absorb the fact that you have a lens of some sort, and it's going to
Yeah.
affect how you think.
1,000%. And that every driver, it's really about finding somebody that, like you said, that matches with what your goals and intentions are. Like my best friend growing up is like the artist of artists. Um, the same guy I told you that got the a job with me at the machine shop.
Hmm.
Uh, More often than not, he is so much of an artist. He struggled in almost all capacities to work because
Mm,
his brain was just going in 1,000 different directions. Like when we were working in the machine shop, he spent more time trying to learn Japanese and Russian from the two people that spoke Japanese and Russian there than doing his actual job.
yeah.
So like, and that's just how he was, right? The guy speaks, I think, 6 or 7 different languages. I watched him, he made a violin from scratch from a block of wood, and it took him 7 years to do it. He literally whittled it and carved it by hand. It is unbelievable. He makes all of his own wine. He makes all of his own whiskey. He grows his own food. He made a suit from scratch and a sewing pattern.
This is
He's taught,
wild.
yeah, he's taught himself how to play one of every instrument, and can write an entire orchestral piece without for every instrument in an orchestra without ever playing it. Like
Wow.
this is the kind of person he is. But because of how his mind operates, his wife is the complete opposite. His wife is a earner. She works her tail off. She makes a high income. She's very personable. He is not.
Yeah.
He is an artist to the core, and so he's been a stay at home dad. They had one kid. He was a stay at home dad, but they fit. So while his wife was working, he cooked all their food. He and did interesting stuff too. He was making it by half of their stuff by scratch.
Yeah.
He made their wine, ran their finances, does all of it, right? And so he's a fantastic partner,
Yeah.
but not one that fits
The mold.
the
Yeah.
mold of a typical man.
Sure.
He's a partner that a highly motivated woman in the workplace is would dream of because
Sure.
they don't he raised their son, was there for everything that they needed to do, always there to drive, pick up while she was out working. And so like you take situations like that and it's it blows up all of the typical uh you know societal
Scripts.
norms, yeah, around all this stuff, which also makes me think like so much of this comes down to the individual, right?
Yes.
And I think so much of what's going on with our society and with everything, and my hope is that the biggest change we see in the coming years is parents indoctrinating their kids with proper values early in life.
Yeah.
Like the way we combat social norms is by having a good enough with relationship with our kids to not allow them to buy into those social norms.
Sure.
Like me teaching my daughters that their beauty isn't where they derive their value from.
Sure.
It's who they are. And teaching our boys that it's not about the amount of money that you make. It's about how hard you work, the fact that you are working and that you have the integrity, and are you living a life of values?
Yeah.
Because, like, are you setting goals and accomplishing them? Because if you want to be a billionaire, great. But if you also want to be a plumber and just have a hardworking, like, and be around for coach little league and be involved in your school and sponsor events, like, that life is freaking great too.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing to be ashamed of about that. Like, but both come with hard work and different payoffs.
Yeah.
So, like, so I guess that kind of leads me into my next question is like, if we're talking about, beauty, how are you going to broach this with your daughter as she starts to get older?
Fuck, man, this is such a heavy question. I think about this all the time, specifically with regard to weight for obvious reasons. Like, I'm so panicked that my child is going to have a complex about food and about her appearance and all of that. And I don't want that to be the case. But is my hyper focus on trying to make that not the case going to make it the case? It's very complicated and difficult situation to navigate. And I think my initial reaction is this. It's so funny. Like, I get so scared to say these things because I know people are going to be like, the fuck? I think women's beauty is a part of our power, and it shouldn't be made out to be a bad thing, right? That women have power in their beauty and their attractiveness, that is a tool in our tool belt. I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. To a degree, right? It shouldn't be ever abused. It shouldn't ever be something that is utilized in an unhealthy, manipulative way, but I'm good with it.
Mm,
So I'm okay telling my daughter she's beautiful. I'm okay with my husband telling her she's beautiful, but we're also telling her she's smart and we're also telling her she's funny, right? So I it's important to me that my daughter takes her appearance and how she presents herself to the world seriously. I'm not okay with my child being like, well, I'm okay with looking sloppy all the time and what I wear doesn't really matter and all of that. I don't agree with that. I think the way you present yourself to the world has an impact on your life and its trajectory. Um, so I do know I'm going to place value, appropriate, in my opinion, value on the importance of taking care of yourself, presenting yourself a certain way to the outside world, with giving yourself the grace of knowing that just how you are when you wake up out of bed is also good enough. I don't often wear makeup unless I have to. And honestly, a lot of that comes from my husband because he doesn't like it. He's like, I think you're really pretty without makeup on. I wish you wouldn't wear it as often as you do. And that's been really healing for me because for a very long time, I didn't feel pretty without makeup. So there's a lot of things in there that I'm still trying to figure out about how I want to frame Claire's world and the lens that she looks through. Which brings me to an interesting story. And I'm so interested to hear your perspective on this because I think we have a really good balanced view. I think we share a lot of commonalities in our fundamental values on this stuff, but I think there are some places where we have some differences. So Shane and I were downtown. We were walking downtown. We were on Congress, and it was late at night. I would say maybe 10 o'clock, maybe closer to 11 o'clock at night, walking past a hotel. And we were walking behind a woman. I think she was with another female friend. I don't think they were with men. And she had a shorter dress or skirt on, and she had great legs, like fucking nice legs. And
mhm.
I can appreciate a nice set of legs on a woman, right? I'm not blind.
Yeah.
And we're passing this group of men, and they were older men. I would say maybe in their late 50s, early 60s. And as she passed them, after she passed, I heard them say, her no, did you see those fucking legs? And I am thinking to myself, I sure as shit did, and they are fucking nice, right? I was not offended by
Yeah.
these men, what some people would call objectifying this woman. And to the degree that I engaged with them, and I asked, are you talking about her legs? And I was going to chime in. My intention was to chime in to say, no shit, right? Those are some nice fucking legs. but they were so scared that I was offended that they all shut the fuck up. All of them were like, uh, uh, and I was like, no, 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 I'm not mad. It's okay. You're cool. It's totally fine for you to talk about that woman's legs in front of me. It's all good. I was just going to say, she has really nice legs. You're so right. And they were like, ha, ha, ha. Like they still didn't believe me. They thought I was like coming for them and was going to be like, you fucking assholes. Woman can't walk by you without you saying something about how she looks. Like, nope, I'm right there with you. Nice fucking legs, lady. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that situation.
Yeah,
And
I think when it comes to beauty, I'm like, look, if you like, we everybody gets objectified all the time.
yeah.
Like, if I buy a Land Rover and roll around in it to everywhere I'm going,
Yeah, you're
like,
sending out a message.
I'm sending out a message. I'm sending
Yeah.
out a message to all the people around me that I want to be perceived as somebody that has money.
Yes.
Like, and when you're a woman and you wear a short skirt that because you have great legs, you want to
You
be
want your legs to
perceived
be
as,
seen.
yeah, you want somebody.
You
So
clearly don't wanna hide your legs, and
correct.
that's the thing, they didn't say it to her. They didn't say, "Oh,
Yeah.
you have really nice legs, I'd like to touch them." It was in passing, she never even heard it.
That's kind of where I would draw the line on it. I'm like,
Yeah.
look, I don't think uh just because somebody wears something, or like if I drive a nice car, like it's not I don't want every person that walks by to be like, "Oh, nice car," and strike up a conversation about my car.
Yeah.
Like not the point. So I do think that there's some social relevance in there of being like,
Yeah.
yeah, like, like catcalling and making
Sure.
somebody feel uncomfortable, like it's not needed. But I think talking to like Tamara and I do it, and it's the best part about having a deaf wife and being able to decide is when we people watch, we're brutal. Like
Yeah.
we like to call it as it is.
Yes.
Uh, and in the same way that if somebody else is like making fun of us for our dynamic, or because they don't think I'm attractive, or they think she's really attractive, or they think I'm attractive, and whatever, I don't give a shit. I don't
Yeah.
care what they think.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily care to hear their opinion of me, but if
Sure.
they
If they
have an
have
opinion,
one, and they're
go
entitled to it.
go for it.
Yeah.
Like, go for it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm all about that. But so I think I want to land the plane here a little bit, because here's my kind of overall takeaway and where I kind of land on all this stuff, because I think all of us have things that we need to address that have have come about from our childhood or early adulthood that need to be processed. There's an understanding that each of us needs to work through to find our weak spots, or what I would call insecurities, right?
Sure.
Because when challenged and when faced with any kind of in any situations, if you have unprocessed insecurities, like you don't understand them, you're not aware of them, you haven't spent time sorting through them and dealing with them, when you're pressed in any situation, you're going to react out of your insecurity.
Right.
You're going to respond like, if I'm insecure about my financial status and I haven't actually processed that, if somebody asks me about it, there's a good chance I'm going to lie.
Yeah,
I'm going
yeah,
to
yeah.
I'm going to do everything to cover up, because it's an insecurity, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is a very real thing that happens in people, and the most confident people you'll ever meet, and from every socioeconomic level, where people that operate from a system of values, no matter how much money they have, somebody that knows who they are and spends time trying to react based off of their values rather than out of their insecurities, that to me seems to be the answer to a lot of what we're facing in
Yeah.
this argument. And the part that I worry about from a male perspective, so my focus is young men, right? Is when you begin to cope early in life, you become less and less capable the older you get and the longer you and the longer you stay involved with your coping mechanism, the more
Mhm.
of a hold that addiction gets on
Sure.
your life, the harder and harder it becomes to address it.
Yeah.
And so being able to operate out of values and having a value proposition compared to operating out of insecurity becomes more and more challenging. And so my fear for young men is that if we don't start to talk, and I talk about this with my boys constantly, is I'm not I don't want them to feel like the things that we're pushing them to do are ever things that we're going to keep with from them forever. I told my kids this the other day because they saw me drinking a THC drink last weekend before we went to bed. And we I do it in front of them sometimes, not super frequently, but I like nights that I want to enjoy myself, I don't hide it from them because I tell them one day I want to do these things with you guys. Like,
Sure.
I wanna get high with my kids one day. I
Yeah.
wanna, drink with them one day. I want them to experience life in its fullest when the time is right.
Yeah.
And when you're still formulating your worldview, when your brain is still growing and operating, this isn't the time to start doing those things.
Yeah.
And it's also why we limit, screen time. We don't allow social media. We don't allow unfettered access to video games and TV. And the reason for that isn't because we're trying to hold them to a standard that we're not keeping ourselves.
Yeah.
The reason we're doing that is because their brains aren't fully formed, and if they get addicted to something at a very young age, it becomes your life story
Yeah.
to untangle it.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
I would rather my kids' life story become about something about pushing forward and making progress. And so the hope is to help them identify their own set of their personal values. I
Yeah.
don't need them to accept my values, but I want them to identify the life that they want to have and begin the process of pursuing that early. And then, when they get old enough to indulge those things, we'll start to take off the reins from it. But the hope is that when you operate from a place of values, your life tends to have a lot more meaning. When you
Yeah.
operate from a place of insecurity, it feels like it doesn't. You're constantly reacting.
Yeah, I completely agree with that entirely. And unfortunately, the reality is there's so few people whose parents take it upon themselves to ingrain that and work within that framework that most of our society is working from a place of having to deconstruct the bullshit first before they can ever actually put and implement the things they want for themselves. And so yeah, I think as our job as humans is to do for ourselves what was not done for us by our parents or was not done well for ourselves by our parents. And as parents, try your best to not pass along your trauma to your kids and go too far in the other direction, and give them the tools to paint on the canvas of their life. But hopefully it's as a blank a canvas as it can be for as long as possible until they figure out what they want to paint with, what tools they want to use.
Correct. Yeah. I think progress when it comes to like the family dynamic is incremental generationally.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I think my hope, my mom was definitely a little bit better than her parents were,
Sure.
and I know she did her best. She failed in a lot of areas with us, but I think she did the best she was capable of doing.
Of course.
And I see that I'm failing with my kids all the time, but I also see that I'm doing better than my father was,
Yeah.
and that I'm here, I'm more present. And my hope is that my kids are better for their generation if they decide to have kids than we were. And,
Yeah.
hopefully the ball continues to roll that direction and we have a lineage of good humans that come about as a byproduct of it. But so let's end this podcast with the best thing that happened this week. Always trying to end on a positive note. So do you wanna start this one?
Sure. I would say it's on the same vein as the worst thing that happened to me this week. It has to do with my RV, which is that even though it got fucked up and scratched, it is in storage. It is buttoned up. It is not something I have to fuck with until I want to. So it's
Yay.
very nice to have that phase of life where we lived in an RV for 3 years behind us, and we are in a brick and mortar establishment again, and my RV can be purely recreational if I want it to be.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I think that's a great one. I would say this week, this year has been an adventure and this weird dynamic of I'm not making as much money as I have in years past,
Mhm.
but at the same time I have to celebrate the growth because historically, if I hadn't done all the work I've done over the last, 6 or 7 years to fix how I view finances, this year would have been far worse. To be honest,
Really rough.
I would have had to change. I would have had to find another job and close down my business anyway.
Yeah.
Um, we haven't had to do that because over the course of years, I've been running my business far more efficient and running on straight cash, no debt, and we save for everything.
Yeah.
And so we are getting close to the end of our savings, but it it's this time of year where we start shopping for Christmas that it's a reminder to me every year about how different my life is because we save constantly every month. We put money aside for Christmas, and this year would be so stressful financially if this week, particularly when we go out and do all of our Christmas shopping, if we didn't build that muscle up.
Yeah.
And because we already have all the money we need and then some for Christmas shopping this year.
I love
And
that for you.
it's allocated and we pay cash for everything. None of it's getting charged on credit cards. So there's no guilt or worry about like, oh, when we do this next month, we're going to
It's gonna
have
hurt.
to it's gonna hurt. And so it just reminds me that I need like every year when this comes around since we've started doing it, I'm like, I'm so thankful. And the dynamic is so different than years past where we've had to charge everything.
Yeah.
And so the best thing that's happened to me this week is definitely Christmas shopping with cash, even in a hard season of life, because of all the work we've done to save and get ready for this year. So I'm super thankful for that.
I'm proud of you. Super proud
Yeah.
of you.
It's mostly Tamara, but I'll take some credit.
Thanks,
So
Tamara. Thank you.
I contribute to transferring money, but she's really been the driver in setting all of that stuff up over the years. So
See?
it's
The
been
caveats. The caveats that you've figured out with each other.
the trade-offs. Well,
That's right.
this is a good conversation. Until next week, signing off of the Unweighted Podcast. Enjoy your week.
Bye-bye.